walking back and forth with picket signs. It looks like the service has started, and we did have a very nice conversation with the gentleman who was walking his dog, and unfortunately most of it was not recorded, but it was very similar to other conversations that I'd had. And one thing that was interesting, one part of it, and I hope this was recorded because this was at the early stages. The former president of the board of the Unitarian Church of Montreal basically, intervened and said to the guy, oh, there's a letter that gives our side of the story that you can get. Essentially trying to discredit me and trying to say, oh, you should read our letter, because that tells, our side of the story. Well, I have not seen necessarily the letter. I think I may have seen it. I've seen various things posted online, but put it this way, I have not seen an on-paper version of the letter that apparently was drawn up by the leadership of the Unitarian Church of Montreal that, I'm trying to remember, I think it's, I know her first name's Marlo, I'm just trying to remember last name. I think it's Marlo something or other Thomas, or I think it might be Marlo. I think there's another name in there. I think I know what it is, but I don't want to say it right now because I'm not sure. But I think her first name's Marlo, and I think the last part of her hyphenated family name is Thomas. And she's a former president of the board of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. Interestingly enough, I'm pretty sure I saw her yesterday in front of Montreal City Hall protesting against the protest that La Meute was having against the motion 103, which basically was a motion against Islamophobia. So on the one hand, you had La Meute and various other people protesting against motion 103 because they felt it was an infringement on freedom of speech. And then on the other hand, you had counter-protesters who were accusing La Meute of being Islamophobic, extreme right-wing group, and essentially saying that their protest for free speech was really a protest, in favor of Islamophobia and so on. But getting back to Marlo, I'm quite sure I saw her holding a sign saying free speech is not hate speech. And what's interesting, or maybe it was the other way, maybe it was hate speech is not free speech. I can easily verify that because I was basically documented the protest on video, and so I have video. Again, I'm not 100% sure it's Marlo Thomas, but I'm quite sure it's her. I think she's wearing the same coat we saw in this video. And so yesterday she was standing outside Montreal City Hall in this counter-protest with a sign that said, free speech is not hate speech, or vice versa, hate speech is not free speech. And what's interesting is that this protest, a very significant element of it, is protesting against anti-religious intolerance and bigotry on the part of Reverend Ray Drennan, other leading members of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, and other intolerant and abusive and bigoted atheist Unitarians. And some of the anti-religious intolerance and bigotry, as expressed by Reverend Ray Drennan, or Frank Green, former president of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, or a variety of other Unitarian Universalists, including current UUA president, Reverend Dr. Peter Morales. While it may not be outright hate speech, it's flirting with hate speech. They they are saying things that are, if not actual hate speech, are heading in that direction. And so I find it ironic that on the one hand, Marlowe, will display a picket sign saying hate speech is not free speech, but on the other hand, she totally condones the anti-religious intolerance and bigotry that I've been protesting against since 1998. Yeah, and I was protesting earlier in letters, but in terms of my outdoor protest, it began in May of 1998. So Marlowe's been aware of this as long as she's been a member of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. She's been totally complicit in efforts to shut down my protest. So she's just a big hypocrite as far as I'm concerned. She examined her own claims about hate speech, basically going beyond free speech, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, I agree, if you're talking total free speech, unfortunately, it does include hate speech, because that's what free speech essentially means. You can say anything. Now, of course, there are some limits on free speech here in Canada and even the United States. But there have been trials about free speech issues which have pretty well ruled that some pretty extreme speech still falls within free speech. So nonetheless, if we're going to talk about hate speech, we're going to talk about speech that's basically intolerant and bigoted and harmful towards other people. Well, unfortunately, Reverend Ray Drennan, Frank Green, Val Bourdon, other leading members of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, other Unitarian Universalists in North America, again, including Reverend Dr. Peter Morales, have made statements that, while they may not be outright hate speech, they are definitely, quite strong intolerance, quite strong bigotry, quite harmful blanket statements about, other people's religious beliefs and practices. Reverend Peter Morales, when he ran to become president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, he had a sermon that also served as a stump speech announcing his, run to be president of the Unitarian Universalist Association. And in that stump speech, he basically said that Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and any number of other old religions, that's an exact quote, old religions from his, he said that they were obsolete religions created for another time, and he cited only negative aspects of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, or only negative aspects, that he attributed to them. He essentially trashed Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and any number of other unspecified old religions as being, leading to intolerance and discrimination and a bunch of other negative things. He wrote them off as being completely obsolete. And of course he did this to bolster his position, that Unitarian Universalism is the religion for our time. His whole spiel was how he was going to transform Unitarian Universalism from a tiny, declining fringe religion. Again, his own words. I really like that characterization of Unitarian Universalism as a tiny declining fringe religion. Well done, Reverend Morales. You hit the nail on the head. He was the man who was going to make Unitarian Universalism great again, actually, when you think about it. He didn't use that slogan. He didn't use that slogan, which obviously mirrors Donald Trump, but he was essentially saying the same thing. I'm going to make Unitarian Universalism a great religion. You know, I'm going to transform Unitarian Universalism from a tiny declining fringe religion to the religion for our time. This is an exact quote. In fact, his campaign slogan was, "We can be the religion for our time." So in other words, you know, he was going to transform Unitarian Universalism from a tiny declining fringe religion to the predominant religion of the 21st century. Well, that didn't quite happen. And it only underscores the irony of the fact that this very same Reverend Dr. Peter Morales, who's going to transform Unitarian Universalism into the religion for our time. Speaking of image tarnishing ministers, this is the same Peter Morales who actually had the unmitigated gall to hire Stikeman Elliott barristers and solicitors defamation lawyer, Maitre Marc-André Coulombe, to falsely accuse me of blasphemous libel. I mean, you know, on the one hand, you're going to turn Unitarian Universalism into the religion of the 21st century. On the other hand, you're going to dredge up some archaic, dare I say, obsolete blasphemy law and falsely accuse someone of breaking that blasphemy law in an effort to hide pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalists. Well done, President Morales. You are such a man of integrity. Oh, and dare I say honesty? Yeah, if I remember correctly, today's sermon's all about honesty. Well, yeah, I think the honesty of Reverend Dr. Peter Morales is